What's going on, everybody? I got an SGC package back. Now, SGC is the company that I'm currently leaning towards when I send cards in for grading, which I don't do very often. I rarely send cards in to get graded. Most of the stuff that I buy, if it's expensive, it's usually already graded, just because then, I ensure myself that I'm not missing something that might be there that I later find. Also, I buy a lot of stuff through the mail, right? eBay or, different auctions. I've recently done some golden auctions as well. And when you buy a graded card, though it may not be a guarantee of what you think you see, you actually see, it gives you a pretty darn good idea, because a card with a 7 isn't going to have a wrinkle, isn't going to have a crease. At least it certainly shouldn't. So I do buy a lot of cards that are already graded. I also buy raw cards. I buy ungraded cards too, and sometimes I decide to get them graded. Now, the question that a lot of people ask is, well, why do you get cards graded? If you don't think that the grading companies are, super consistent, if you don't really think that the number at the top right-hand corner of the slab is that meaningful, it's just kind of a guide, why would you send something in to get graded? Why would you pay $15 to $25 to get a grade on a card when you don't think grading is overly important? And I think that's a great question. And the answer to that for me is, if there's a card that I'm thinking about selling or I would consider selling, it is much, much easier to sell when it's graded, right? Because to the same point I just made, if somebody else is buying something through the mail and all they have is a 2D picture, they can't see the surface, they can't see every angle of the card, they can't really get as good a look as you could in person, then they feel safer when they're buying something that has a grade on it, because they know they're not going to get duped, right? And that's a big deal, especially when you're spending a decent amount of money and you're sending that money off for a card that you're not in the same room as. So that would be one of the main reasons that I get cards graded, is because what it does is it provides for me liquidity for the card, meaning it's easier to sell potentially, should I choose to sell it, if it's a card that in the future I say, you know what, I don't think this is right for my collection, or the value of this card is now more to others than it is to me. It allows me to sell it and get maximum value. So I sent 8 cards into SGC recently. They quote a 5 to 10 day business day turnaround. It was 14 business days before this particular return had the grades posted. So let's see how I did. I'm curious on your thoughts on what you think of the grades that I received.
Okay, so here we are. And in hyper speed, I'm going to go ahead and cut this open. Again, there are 8 cards inside. Sent these off about 3 weeks ago, about 14 business days before the grades posted. And I will go ahead and take these out, and then I'll slow things down so we can get a better look at each card. Now, I picked up a few cards not that long ago that were included in this. One of them is this 78 Eddie Murray rookie card. Now, on this card, I think it's a pretty nice looking card, really well centered card, and it got a 7. I think a 7 is probably the fair grade. I was holding out hope it might get an 8, maybe a 7.5. I felt like kind of the worst case scenario was a 7 on it. Really well centered. It's a sharp card. Even the back is well centered. It's got a really clean surface. So, I'm okay with the 7. I was hoping an 8. The value jumps way up at an 8, but 7 is fine. Now, this card is beautiful. This is a Julius Erving rookie card in gold ink, and I really, really like it. And it's got an auto grade and a card grade. So look at how beautiful that signature is. Isn't that gorgeous? So it got the 10 auto grade and a 9 card grade. And when I looked this one over, I didn't see anything wrong with the card. It looked absolutely immaculate. It is a thicker card, and those are harder to get high grades on, but I just thought it was gorgeous. I was really hoping for a 10-10 on this. It would obviously help the value. I'm open to selling this one, just like the Eddie Murray. I don't necessarily need to sell it, but I'm willing to. So that's a little bit of a disappointment there. So far, it's the worst case scenario on both. Now, this one's a Jerry West autograph card from National Treasures. And so this one got a 10 auto 8.5. Again, this card, I didn't see anything wrong with it. It's out of 49. I mean, to me, it looked absolutely perfect, but apparently it got an 8.5. So again, on this one, I'm not really looking to sell it. I'm willing to sell it. The 10 would have helped. Again, in most of these, the reason I got them graded is because I'm open to selling them, and they just sell better and faster when they're graded. So this one is, that one, I don't get the 8.5. Now this one is an Oscar Robertson. Now if you look on the back, it is a little off-centered side to side. You can see the centering there. But it's a gorgeous card, autographed. So 10 auto, 9 card. Now I'm guessing the reason for the 9 instead of the 10 is simply that centering, which you can only tell from the back, because other than that, the card looked pretty much perfect to me. I kind of thought this one would probably get a 9. Was hoping it might slip through and get a 10, but that's okay. Again, gorgeous Oscar Robertson autograph. And this one's numbered out of 25. A super cool card of one of the all-time best players in NBA history. And so that one I think is a fair grade, probably about what I expected. Now this next one is a Willie Mays, a 58 Topps Willie Mays, which I bought at a show not that long ago. It was in a PSA 2 holder, but the holder was old and scratched up. So instead of getting it reholdered, I was like, let's just crack it and send it to SGC. And it moved up to a 2.5. So it's got great color. It's got perfect centering. Surface is pretty sweet. The only real issue with it is the corners are pretty heavily worn. But from an eye appeal perspective, it is a beautiful card. So it went up from the 2 to the 2.5 to SGC, which I think is fair again. If it had stayed a 2, I would have been okay with that. Going up to a 2.5, I think, is justified. Now this Bob Feller is a little bit beat up. It's got a pretty solid crease through the middle of it, and then the top corner there has some damage. So that got a 1.5. Perfectly centered, great eye appeal. I don't know. I thought this one had a chance at somewhere between a 2 and a 3. Again, it's got the crease kind of along his chin through the center of the card, and then there's obviously wear on the corners. But I don't know. I mean, I guess, I don't know. When I think of a 1.5, I think of a pretty beat-up card. This is not a beat-up card. I'm a little disappointed with that grade. Now, next up at Johnny Mize, there's a little bit of wax residue there on the top half of the card. And this is a 51 Bowman as well. A little top to bottom center. So 3.5, I think that's probably fair. It's got a little bit of a diamond cut at an angle that you can see the best across the top. A little off center, top to bottom, but side to side it's nice. A very clean surface, and I got a really good deal on this card raw, maybe 6 months ago. I think 3.5 is probably fair on that particular card. And then my last one is an Ozzie Smith rookie card. Now this Ozzie Smith 1979 Topps is a really sharp card. Back centering's great Front centering is off by a bit, probably 75-25. So my hope here was a 7, and it got a 6. I mean, the corners are really nice. The color is really, really nice. Super clean surface. The top to bottom centering is pretty good. It's really just the side to side. So the 6 I'm a little disappointed with. I thought this card would get a 7. So that's a bummer.
So how'd I do? First off, first question I have for you is, do you think I should have even gotten those graded, or was that just a waste? Should I have gotten those cards graded? Should I have just left them ungraded? Let me know your thoughts on that. Number 2, what do you think about the grades I've received? Did any of them seem particularly high? Did any of them seem particularly low? I'm curious your thoughts there. It does seem like PSA's standards has been getting a little bit tougher. I feel like SGC's has been more consistent and more in line with what their grades have been over the last couple of years. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below.